So Nissan have done it. Finally, the Juke looks beautiful. So should you consider buying a new Nissan Juke? My name's Cameron, and you're watching a productreview.com.au in-depth look, and today we're checking out the 2021 Nissan Juke STL. So this Juke here is called the STL. This one's the second from the top of the range. The new Juke lineup starts at $30,490, where this one here is $36,490. So there's a few bits and pieces here that add to the price, and we'll go through them in a second. So the first generation Nissan Juke, that thing was the definition of controversial. You had people who absolutely loved it or they absolutely hated it. And that's because Nissan really went out there with the design. They had hood mounted headlights and they had this whole design that was really different from what people expected back in the early 2010s. Now it's 2021 and we have the Nissan Juke second generation, and it has more competition than ever. We have cars like the Toyota CHR and the Hyundai Venue, which are all following that stylish trend of making your small SUVs look good and interesting to look at rather than being boring boxes on wheels. So what Nissan has done here is made this a whole lot more sleek and I guess sexy to say, because it looks like they've taken the clay model out of the design studio, thrown some paint on it and then put it into showrooms, because it really does look that good. They've got these nice slim daytime running lights. You have these unique lower mounted round headlights with a Y-shaped design, which is very Lamborghini-esque. And then the whole thing just ties in quite nicely. You have a contoured hood and a contoured roof, which all looks very much like a sports car rather than a conventional hatchback. So moving along the side of the Juke, you've got a few things which really add to the sleek looking design that we saw at the front. So you've got these wheels. These are these two-tone wheels that come standard on the STL trim. That's what you pay more for. And they really go well with this white ivory metallic paint. You've got different bits of black trim which are all designed to trick the eye and make this look a lot slimmer than it actually is. And first of all, it's this A-pillar here and these pillars at the rear, making the roof look like it's sort of floating and a bit more slim than it actually is. You have black side mirrors here with blind spot monitoring. You have central locking and only one conventional door handle. The other one's hidden up here, which is continuing that sleek design. Nothing sort of protruding out the side here. It's all very flat and slim. Here at the back of the Juke, we have a few different things going on. First of all, it's this black roof spoiler here, which isn't really a spoiler. It just continues that contoured roof design through to the back. You've also got a rear deck design, which is just some more body sticking out instead of just going all the way down to the hatch. And it looks a bit like a ducktail spoiler, and it's something that Toyota is doing with their CHR. So I think it looks quite interesting as well. So nice design touch there, Nissan. You've also got body molded LED lights at the rear, which I think look quite interesting and continue the line of the car from the front all the way to the back. Then you've also got some rear cameras, rear sensors, and some other trims at the bottom here. But more importantly, no fake exhaust pipes. It all looks very neat and tidy down here, so well done on that. Here at the rear of the Nissan Juke, you have 422 litres of cargo space. Take out this parcel shelf and you get a bit more space. And what you get back here is kind of interesting because there's a really deep boot lip here, which makes pulling things in and out just that little bit harder. Below the boot, you do have an actual spare tyre, which is rare to see on new cars today, so it's good that you know that you do have one back here. Now the seats do fold in a 60-40 split, and you just press the buttons at the rear here, which are a little bit stiff initially. Ugh. But once you get that down, you reveal a bit more cargo space, and same can be done for the other side as well. Once you get them down, they're just a little bit tricky to do smoothly. You get more cargo space, which is great, although there's a little bit of an issue with the lip that you do have with the seats here. They don't fold flat, so yes, plenty of space here, but you probably will have a bit of an issue pulling things in and out. But to show my demonstration here, I've got my backpack, and it disappears below this giant boot floor here. So plenty of space, but yeah, pulling things in and out isn't gonna be so easy. So for me, hopping into the new Nissan Juke was something that I was really looking forward to. The photos of the interior that I saw before getting into this car actually looked like it really complemented the exterior, and it does, because the STL trim gets a few different pieces here that I think go really well with this car in this spec. Part of it's this leather dash here. You have soft touch materials here up on the dash. You also have a stitched door insert here, which looks really good, and you have this dark gray gloss material used everywhere, much better than gloss black. It just looks quite nice and premium in here. Starting from the top, you have an 8-inch touchscreen up here, which was very impressive to use. I was very impressed with how responsive the screen was. I wasn't expecting much for something like this, but I was actually blown away by how well this performs, especially with Apple CarPlay. There's no lag, works really well, and it's all very intuitive. You have digital radio here and you have navigation in here as well, so it's all part of the STL and works really well. I do like using the center screen. There's no problems there, and especially with the hard buttons down the bottom, just means you can quickly jump to things like the map, or better yet, the 360-degree camera in here, which is good if you're navigating tight spaces or trying to get a good park. You also have these air vents here, which are like airplane style turbine designs. They're not fantastic to touch, but it doesn't really matter because once you have them adjusted, they just look good. And then moving down to the climate controls here, you have dual zone heated seats, but then you have single zone climate controls. Then you also have a 12-volt adapter down the bottom, as well as a USB connectivity for your phone. And you also have an auxiliary cord as well, and a nice place to put your phone. Now you have a pretty cool transmission tunnel, which starts with the start stop engine button, which is sort of sunken into the transmission tunnel and feels like a real engaging piece of the car to press and use, rather than being stuck up on the dash, or in even some cases stuck onto the steering column. Moving to the shifter, it's surrounded in this orange light, which is like an accent light. You also have this on the door as well, and it looks really cool. It looks like you're summoning the shifter out of the transmission tunnel here. The only thing I did have a complaint about was the use of this leather here. Usually that's fine, but our model had some tears already on the shifter boot, which isn't really good, and I wouldn't be too impressed if I had bought that. Now, it could have been an accident. Someone could have done that before who was test driving this car, but I just noted that was a thing, so just keep an eye out for this leather wearing. Now below that you do have a drive mode selector, which is cool, comes on the STL. You have Eco, Standard and Sport, all very easy to navigate. You have a parking brake here, which is electronic, and you have auto hold as well, which just means when you're on a hill it doesn't roll anywhere. You have a full color center display, which is really fascinating because it works so quickly and so well. It's hard to show on camera because your screen probably won't show this, but it's just super quick and super responsive, much faster than anything I've used in many other cars. So really props to Nissan for putting a really high quality display in front of the driver. Now you have access to things like a compass, a digital speedometer, fuel economy, trip information, and media controls, all very standard. You have analog gauges left and right. And then you also have this fake carbon fiber trim around the instrument cluster, the instrument cluster is huge, so it's really easy to read and really easy to use. Moving to the steering wheel, you have a flat bottom design, sort of feels like they're inspired by some of their sports cars that Nissan makes. And you have these paddle shifters on the back, which are actually quite nice to press and use with the dual clutch transmission in this car. You have media controls on the left, you have cruise control and radar cruise control on the right. All very simple to use. The cup holders here, very generously sized. They fit a reusable water bottle just fine and holds it relatively still. There is some movement in there. You have a very small center console here, which isn't really a problem. It will fit a few bits and pieces in here, but it's kind of small, but it's okay because it's made up with this humongous glove box that Nissan have put in here. Now the back of the Nissan Juke is absolutely fine with headroom because they haven't succumbed to the design of bringing the roof all the way down where it steals all your headspace. You still have plenty of headspace here, although the side pillar here can come into people who are a little bit taller, but I'm 5'11", and this is me sitting as I normally would in the back here. My knee room's okay. This is set to my driving height, but everything's okay with my feet space. I have plenty of feet space down here. And everything in here is quite nicely trimmed as well in the STL. Everything's quite plush and easy to use. I wouldn't want to be the person in this middle seat just because there is a pretty big transmission tunnel here and it isn't really contoured because this looks like it's really designed just for two people in the rear. Now you don't have a folding center armrest, you just sort of make do with your arms floating around in the middle, and you have to make do with just one USB in the rear, so people might be fighting for that charger if they're low on power. You have generous seat pockets and you have nicely sized door bins as well. You have plenty of visibility out, and your windows here, they do fold down a generous amount too, better than some other cars that we've tested, so your passengers aren't going to feel claustrophobic in the back here. Now here's the heart of the Juke. It's a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol motor. It's the only engine option for the range. There's no hybrid here. This one here puts out 84 kilowatts and 180 newton meters of torque, which on paper doesn't really seem like a lot, but let's go for a drive and see if that really matters. Now, driving in the Nissan Juke is a funny story because it's Something that doesn't get you too excited on paper when you hear that you only have 84 kilowatts and 180 newton meters of torque. You all of a sudden get a bit worried and a bit scared that you're going to have a car that might be underpowered and you've just paid good money for. Well, let me just rest assure you that it is not underpowered. It is absolutely adequate for the application, and the reason for that is because this car only weighs 1,200 kilograms, and that's a lot less than a lot of cars that people drive now. Even Golfs are a lot heavier as well, and hatchbacks are just getting bigger. So to see a car that's 1,200 kilos is something that probably won't be advertised, and all you see is the power output, and it might spook you, but takeoff in this is absolutely fine, and it's thanks to this dual clutch transmission as well. But we'll get to that in a second. Visibility in here is perfect. It's absolutely fine. You have blind spot monitoring, and you have a nice sort of flat waistline around the bottom of the windows, which means that looking left and right and to the back is no problem. You can easily see everything. And then if you do miss something, this car is fitted with automatic braking detection, and that just means it can read if pedestrians, cyclists or cars or any obstacles are crossed in front of you, and it will automatically apply the brakes. Now, how effective is it? Well, this got a 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2019 from ANCAP themselves. So they've tested these and it works just fine. Now, how's the fuel economy in here? Well, I started the trip when I picked up this car, and we're looking at around an average of 10.9 litres per 100 Ks. That is absolutely fine for the type of driving I'm doing. I was testing out how responsive this engine is, and it does require a bit more of a deeper throttle press. So 10.9 litres is okay. It's not crazy exceptional either. It is a petrol motor in a SUV body with no hybrid assistance, so it's around expected. 10.9 litres, it's all right, but drive a bit more conservatively, you can easily see that figure drop below 10 litres. Now, the Juke is fitted with 3 drive modes, and the first one is Eco. What does Eco do? Well, it's sort of is designed to save you as much fuel as possible and be as responsible for the environment as possible. I didn't really like driving in Eco. It's just a bit too sluggish for my liking, and even in bumper-to-bumper traffic, it's just not as good as standard. I think driving in standard a majority of the time is plenty for what most people need, and that's just going to keep the car in its most normal setting. Now, this car does have a sport mode. Yeah, it seems like a lot of cars come with sport modes now, but on the Juke, all it really does is just make this petrol 3-cylinder turbocharged motor a bit more responsive and a little bit more engaging to drive too, if you do fancy a bit of engaging driving on a road just like this one. Now, paired with the dual clutch transmission, it does a great job of shifting when you're up to speed. It really does. I have been thoroughly impressed with the performance of this 3-cylinder, even in a car of this size. Now, the only issue you'll find is that when you start to dig deeper into the accelerator, the car will not respond and throw you back in the seat, but you shouldn't expect it to, because this car does an absolutely fine job of getting you up to speed and keeping you there too. So the only gripe I have is when you come to a complete stop just like this in the dual clutch, what ends up happening is that the car thinks you're ready to go, and then when you let off the accelerator again, it sort of feeds on maybe just a bit too much power, and then the gearbox sort of holds the gear for too long. It's taken me just probably a little bit too long to get used to that, which is a little annoying for me, but I'm sure as time goes on owning this car, that will become a normal response to that takeoff. You will learn how to feed that power on a bit more smoothly, but just initially it is a bit hard to take off and slow down all of a sudden just a little bit smooth in the dual clutch. I think this car is going to be absolutely perfect for people who just want an everyday commuter and they live in Greater Sydney. It's something that you can take long road trips in too, because it has the space for it, and it's going to have enough space for when you do need to move just some of the bigger items, or if you want to carry 4 adults in here, you can do that as well. Plenty of space in the back for booster seats and even child seats as well. You've got ISOFIX points back there, and even a little slit to put a seatbelt buckle in there so it stays out of the way. This is really thought out to be sort of the family car, and it would do a decent job at that too. It's a decent family car, and I think if you bought this for that purpose, you would be absolutely fine. So that's been the 2021 Nissan Juke STL, and I think for under $40,000 it represents really decent value and should definitely go into your shopping list if you're cross-shopping a bunch of compact or small SUVs. With its safety features and technology and luxury fitments inside the STL spec, and with this design and how it drives, I really think is a formidable competitor in the crowded compact SUV segment. So if you enjoyed this review, please consider subscribing. We have plenty more on the way for new car reviews here in Australia. You've just watched a productreview.com.au in-depth look. My name's Cameron, and thank you so much for watching.